Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia. This is Free Range, where nature meets knowing and truth finds its voice. Today is no ordinary broadcast. We are in a moment, a divine moment, where truth, law, and spirit are converging. This is not just about politics, it's about remembrance. I speak now not only to my fellow Americans, but to the light web and to those who know Elder Christian and the resonating army and the frequency related to that. Um, Today, we will be joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Sandy Miarecki, a voice from within the system, now standing outside of it for truth, for the Constitution, and for the people. And so this is all for we the people. So let me bring Sandy on. Welcome, Sandy.
I'm glad we got our technical difficulties figured out. That was an interesting one.
Yeah, yes. I don't know why, but it seems like everybody has a little bit of a problem whenever the first time they're on this platform. I don't know why. I'm going to have to complain to Restream to say, tell them to make it easier or something. But anyway, we're going to be talking about the real story behind the Reinhabited Republic, the military's role in transition, and the deeper spiritual forces guiding the moment. So let's talk about that. So, Sandy, I'm so happy. I'm honored to have you on. And boy, have you ever flown a bunch of different planes? I'm going, or jets, and all the whole 9 yards. I'm going, oh my God! As I was looking at it, I said, wow, I wish I could do that. A long time ago, anyway.
Right.
But anyway, let's get started by, you can tell a little bit about your background so people know why I'm saying that, because you spent a long time in the Air Force. I have an older son who was in the Air Force for 4 years. But anyway, tell me about your piloting and your military and what brought you here today.
Sure. So I'll keep it brief. I don't know how much time we have since we started late, but
it doesn't matter on my show.
Okay. Well, ever since I watched the moon landings, which we're pretty sure were faked now, on the television, I wanted to be an astronaut. And so over time, I studied a lot in school, et cetera, and figured out through asking, essentially, what should I do? And found out that the best way to do that was to actually be a pilot in the military. I says, oh, I like roller coasters. I'd never flown before. And I thought, okay, we'll try, right? So I went through the whole process. I was Air Force ROTC at the University of Illinois. I'm originally from Chicago. And,
oh, wow.
And
so, I'm from Wisconsin.
Okay.
We're not far from there, yeah.
No, not at all. I have friends actually that live in Racine. Yeah. So finished school, finished ROTC, and was commissioned, and then became a pilot candidate, and of course went to pilot training as soon as I got into the Air Force. My career jumped all around. It was not a standard career like most Air Force people are pretty much in one type of aircraft. And in my case, I was an instructor pilot at the beginning, then cargo planes. Then I went to the test pilot school. I was a test pilot. After graduation from the school, I was in B-52s, the bombers. Then I went back operational to the C-5, so not the test world anymore. And there's a whole story behind that, but essentially manning problems, in the Air Force because they don't know what they're doing. It's not lovely. And so then I ended up calling up an old boss, and he said, come work for me. And so I was in the C-5, which is, again, is cargo for the largest plane we have in the United States.
Wow.
And then after that, went to back to the little planes. I was an instructor at the instructor school. So now I'm teaching T-38s. We call it the schoolhouse. And that was my last flying assignment. And then I was at Brooks Air Force Base, San Antonio, when I retired. And I essentially retired because of all of the vaccines. I don't know how much we can say on your program without getting blocked.
Well,
But
yeah, hopefully they're not as bad as they used to be, but I don't know.
I know. So lots of injuries from that, and I barely made it to 20 years and retired. Realizing I had to do something else with my life, I decided that I loved teaching, and I loved physics, which is what my background was, astrophysics. So I went back to school and got my master's and PhD in physics at Berkeley. And
You don't play ball, do you?
and then while I was finishing that, a job finally opened at the place where I thought I could put all of my skills together, which was the Air Force Academy. And so I got hired as a physics instructor and then eventually physics professor, and was there for about 8 years, I guess. No,
Wow.
I'm sorry.
You
That was
know,
Berkeley was 8 years. I was there
tell
for 6 years.
one time, many, many years ago, in the early part of my career, I taught one class on nutrition assessment at you're talking about the academy in Colorado Springs, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I was actually there once
hmm
and taught nutrition assessment.
So
anyway,
I was there when the COVID came.
Oh, wow.
And everything for any of your listeners that, follow God and his assignments for us. And I could feel his hand on this one. And so the students and the faculty and a whole bunch of a lot of people in the community, the medical folks in particular, they knew something was not right with these shots. And I was already working with a legal team to help get the masks off the students in the public schools. That was just like a side thing, right? I was just doing that because that's what you do when you have expertise. Mm-hmm. And so that then morphed into helping the students who were coming to me and asking for help. And I said, well, there's exemptions. Do you guys want to do that? And here's the rules and the whatever. They said, yes, please help me. So I did. Well, that got me in trouble. And that's a whole other 2-hour podcast to tell you about how well I did there. But essentially, my boss and a couple other folks had to lie in order to get rid of me, because they had to get rid of me because I knew everything. I knew the truth about what was going on. And so they eventually fired me in September of 2022. So I saw that was coming. And so I'm praying, God, what do you want me to do next? I know you brought me here for this reason. I know you needed me here to do this, and I did what you asked. But I have honestly no clue what you want me to do next. And then random people started coming into my life that were associated with the Republic for the United States of America. I had not heard of this before October. So about a year prior, October of 21, a mutual friend had introduced me to someone who was a member and one of the leaders of the group. And I learned like a fire hose of information in like an hour and a half. And I just, I typed it as fast as I could because I knew there was no way I could write it that fast. And I'm just going to go into now how that story ended up. So God was telling me, you need to be involved in this republic. And that's where I've been ever since.
That is awesome. So some people thought, or we would think, that the republic was destroyed, but it wasn't really destroyed, correct?
That's correct. And so I'll get to those details.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know if people know what you mean by the Reinhabited Republic.
Exactly.
So maybe we should clarify that.
So let's go back a little bit in history. I think most of us that went to a decent school and are over the age of about 40 when we still had education, we knew that we were given a constitutional republic. Now, that's not how we started. We had the Articles of Confederation. That was a whole other part of our history, and then eventually switched over to the Constitution, and that was a constitutional republic. So that's the republic our founding fathers gave us, and that's what we were supposed to have this whole time. Well, we've got really evil people working against us from the beginning. Freemasons, Jesuits, bar attorneys, other secret societies, all trying to take us down. And the founding fathers even warned us, you've got a republic if you can keep it, right? The words of Ben Franklin as they're walking out of Independence Hall.
I remember that.
So slowly over time, kind of like boiling the frog, they started to take away some of our rights, whatever.
Oh my God, yes.
And tricking us because it was under the radar, as we would say as a pilot, right? So that you didn't know it or feel it very much. And so by the time we get to the Civil War, 1860s timeframe, and the states start leaving the Union, which they can't do. I mean, we could have a whole other podcast on that, but when it says perpetual union, that means perpetual. It means you don't leave. Anyway, so that started the biggest steps towards losing our republic. And then by 1871, of course, 1865, we had the debt, because the North won the war over the South. The banksters, I call them banking gangsters. The banksters,
yeah, that's what they are,
funding both sides.
Yeah,
of course, the same banksters, right? And so then, when you win, you inherit the debt of that one you just beat, right? So now we've got the North and the South's debt, and we're in the middle of Reconstruction, and we've got these evil people who are delaying Reconstruction and interfering and all this other stuff. Of course, Lincoln was killed like a week or something after the end of the Civil War. So he never got to put back all the things that he had to do to try to keep the Union. And a lot of historians say, well, he kept the Union, but we lost the Republic.
Wow.
Well, now the debt is due. So the banksters are coming to the Congress essentially and saying, okay, we need you to pay up whatever the conditions were of the loan. And they go, we're still in Reconstruction. And so they said, let's make a deal with the devil. And so they pretended to pass something called the Organic Act of 1871. And that was the beginning of a whole series of, again, small changes over time that incorporated Washington, D.C., the 10 square miles.
Who orchestrated that?
There's a whole list of names. I would actually refer you to a couple of history books that were written by our Republic members, the Hertlers, Hertler. You can look it up. They've got 4 books that they've written, and all of them are awesome.
Oh, okay.
So volume 1 of the book, called Reinhabited, which we'll get to as to why it's called that here in a second, is the true American history. And that will tell you, answer pretty much any question you want on that, with lots of footnotes, pages and pages and pages of footnotes. And then the volume 2 is the story of what I'm telling you about the reinhabitation of that republic. How did we get it back? So in a nutshell, volume 1 is how we got a republic and how we lost it. And volume 2 is how we got it back.
Ah, cool. And that's on the website, correct?
You can get it on your Amazon or, hopefully not Amazon, just because they're so communist, but you can go to another website and get your typical books.
eBay. How about eBay? Is that any better?
They might have some. Yeah, it's possible. But your Barnes and Noble maybe, or Thrift Books, or, one of the smaller ones. So Republic. So that was kind of like the end of the Republic. In the 1870s. Now, let's fast forward. We had 1913 was the Federal Reserve, not federal and not a reserve. We already know that. It's actually owned by the foreign banksters.
Yeah.
And so IRS, same year, works for the Federal Reserve.
Isn't that amazing how they fooled us all? Oh, they totally
tricked us all into paying taxes that we never had to pay because the Constitution says no. And all that money just goes into the pockets of the banksters. None of it stays here. How about that?
Isn't that amazing? And people don't have a clue. If they knew that, they probably wouldn't pay their taxes.
No, a lot of people are not now paying taxes because.
Thank goodness, yes.
So now we fast forward about 100 years to roughly. Let's go back a little. Assassination of JFK. So you probably recall him saying, I'm going to, break apart the FBI and CIA and scatter it to the winds. It was something like right.
Little pieces or something like that. Yeah.
Right. In a million pieces. Yeah. I can't remember what it was.
Exactly,
something very drastic.
I never forgot. I was in grade school at the time when they came in and said he was shot.
They killed him. FBI, CIA, Mafia, probably a couple other agencies murdered JFK. And that's what the JFK files, should they ever really release them like they promised, we'll say. So those revelations may cause a lot of unrest. And so they're probably slow leaking them at this point.
We can handle it.
Same time, yeah, you and I can, but your normies, they don't know anything about this. So about the same time as around, plus or minus a few years of JFK. I don't have the exact history because now this is the things that these people told our people about what was happening and what had happened. So now we're up to about 2008. And this group that I think is called the Army of Virginia, back in the JFK days, mostly retired generals and some of their very trusted staffs, maybe colonels or something that worked for them. And they went, oh, this is a really good guy. I know he's going to help save this country. They didn't know how they were going to do it. They just knew that they had to do something, and they started to organize.
Awesome.
So slowly building up over time, they had their ups and downs. By 2008, it was clear that something very bad was going to happen. Well, I'll tell you exactly. Obama, using air quotes, had just won the election in November of.
Boy, did he fool people too. Oh my God.
Well, he's actually former CIA.
Yeah.
So makes sense. So was the Bushes. So
yeah.
Not
even an American born either.
Yeah. So we got this time frame when this Army of Virginia, this group of retired military folks, start to realize that they've got to do something, and they've tried these other things that didn't work. And so they started to approach the bigger, more successful patriot groups. And in this case, they approached Timothy Turner and a group of folks called Restore America Plan, RAP. And they had Constitution Radio. They had how to lawfully not pay taxes. They were teaching courses. They had millions of followers. So what we would call the white hat military. Okay. This is what this Army of Virginia.
Good guys.
Let's start the good guys. So they approached Tim Turner and a couple of his colleagues, and they say, here's who we are, and can you restore the Republic? And because Tim knew, and all of the people in his group knew, that we had a corporation. For anyone who doubts that, I'm going to give you a U.S. code 28 USC 3002, paragraph 15. You can go and look that up. That is where it says the United States means a federal corporation. If that wasn't the truth, then why would they say it? You can also go to dunandbradstreet.com, which is where all corporations are registered.
And you'll see all the cities, all the counties, all the states.
In the world.
All there.
In the world. Okay, is where this Dun and Bradstreet is.
God.
And so you're going to see, country of Philippines or country of, Zimbabwe or, whatever it is. These are going to be listed because it's corporations pretty much all over the world. So
those
Washington,
D.C.
Right. So Washington, D.C. incorporated. And everyone goes, oh, but that just means to pay their bills and stuff. Well, that's how it might have started, as some sort of like an invoicing helpy thing. But then in 1871 and the 1870s after that, they got rid of the Republic. Now, the big question in 2008, when the military approached this Restore America Plan folks, did we still have a republic somewhere? They didn't know. So now they're scouring the archives, and they're going through Philadelphia, they're going through New York, they're going through Washington, D.C., they're going through everything they can find. And as far as we can tell, the republic was only abandoned and not abolished.
Thank God for that one.
They forgot. They didn't think we'd figure it out, apparently.
Exactly. Wow.
So with that information in mind, they go, well, how do you reseat or re-inhabit, why the word, an abandoned government? Well, our founding fathers warned us a republic if you can keep
Yeah.
it. They
Yeah.
never
Thomas
imagined
Jefferson.
we would actually lose it. So they didn't give us a checklist for how to get it back. They didn't think we'd actually lose it. We did. So we start to look at other laws and things that the Congress had done back in, the 1800s, 1700s, and realizing that, well, it has to be a grassroots thing, right? We the people. That's Declaration of Independence kind of stuff, right?
That's what this is all about, is we the people.
That's right. And so the word went out over the Constitution radio and all the talks and everything, and this information was shared, spread like wildfire amongst that community. And so they started at the county level. Can you reseat your county back on the land? Because corporations are using maritime water law. Okay. And that's from the old British Empire stuff. That's the stuff that came over with the colonies. So anything that you do today in America and in any other country is maritime water law, which means they get to make it up. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
what we see in today's courts.
This is absolutely amazing what they do in the court. When they want something, they just walk around it and do it. Just
whatever they want. Yep. There's no rules, no laws. Well, is there any justice in a corporation? I mean, that's really where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely not. And how can they contract with a real living man or woman?
They can't. And
But
that's
they do.
That's where the fraud comes in. So about the 1906-ish time frame, 1905, they introduced this thing called a birth certificate. And by about 1913, 14 time frame, it's becoming like more mandatory, until eventually it is mandatory. You have to have a birth certificate. Oh, well, that just means that I can prove where I was born, who my parents are, and, I'm an American.
No, my birth certificate says my mother was an informant. They stopped putting that on there too.
All of them say that. Mm-hmm. They never tell you, though, what that actually means.
Yeah.
So that is not informed consent, and therefore fraud vitiates everything. That means fraud destroys everything. If you've done something in fraud, it's null and void. It doesn't actually occur. It doesn't exist. But what they took then with that birth certificate that looks very similar from state to state, except it's got different state name and county, is like the little boxes, right? Name of child, date of birth, parents, time of birth, attending doctor, mother, father, age, born, etc. So that document is then taken, and a couple of days later, another thing called, so this is certificate of live birth is generally what it's called in most states. If you see across the top, it says certificate of live birth. And then they create the birth certificate, which sounds really a lot like the same thing. And that is where your name is in all capital letters.
Interesting.
That's a corporation. So what they've done is, in fraud, they have taken your baby and done identity theft and created a fraudulent corporation in that baby's name with all the baby's information. And now that can be traded on the stock market. And I've actually tracked mine. I have both copies, the certificate of live birth and the birth certificate.
I have both copies too.
2 separate documents from corrupt Cook County, Illinois, Chicago.
I bet, yeah.
That took some doing, whole other show. But anyways, so you can look all this stuff up. And so what they do is, because they're trading it on the stock market, it's gaining money. It's growing. And so a friend of mine who's like 45 years old found an organization that will check the balance, because that's about all you ever want to do. Because if you go any further than that, you usually end up dead somewhere, because the banksters will find out that you took money from your account and they can't have that. And so they will take you out. I don't know how many times that's happened, but I know it's happened multiple times. So you don't go in, you can look, and that's about all you can do. So she had $360 million at age 45.
Whoa.
Now, how much would maybe Donald Trump have in his? It'd be a hell of a lot more than 360 million, right? Because of all the things he's done.
Yes.
So
And his age. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and he's older. That's right. So who knows how much is in all of our accounts. All right, so let's back up. So back 2008, they figure out we still have a republic. We just need to put butts in the seats, right? We need to fill these seats. Well, how do we do it as lawfully and constitutionally as possible? Well, we the people. Back to the county level, restart the county assemblies. Sounds just like what it is. The people coming together, having a meeting like once a month and working through problems. Let's go back to imagine like Little House on the Prairie. If you guys remember that show, right?
I do.
And so you've got the school/church, right, which is one building.
Yeah.
And there's a big meeting. Maybe they had a big storm or something. Okay. And so they all go to this place because it's the place where they can meet. And they're all standing up around the outside of the walls. And they're saying, well, we've got, the bridge washed out and Mrs. Johnson lost her barn. And, how are we going to fix all this stuff? And they work it out. That's the county assembly. Okay. At a very small, package for a very small town of maybe 500 people or 1,000 people.
So people help each other out.
That's right. And they figure out, okay, well, let's all pitch in $1 and we can go buy the wood for Mrs. Johnson's barn. Or let's all pitch in another $1 so we can go buy the wood to make the new bridge. Okay, so that's it. So how do you put the county assembly back on the land? Well, remember I said that they incorporated Washington, D.C.
Right.
Well, a state is a republic, has a republican form of government. And so a government and a corporation don't talk to each other. And so DC says, hey, states, there's this great thing called a corporation. We all need you to do it. I don't know how they did that. I'm just making it up, right? And they either tricked them, threatened them, bribed them, or all of the above. And then slowly over about the 20 years,
yeah,
they had all the states incorporated. And you can go look up state of Iowa, state of Florida, state of Texas, all capital letters. It's in there in Dun & Bradstreet. Now the states go, hey, counties, there's this great thing called a corporation, and we need you to do this as well. So all 100 and whatever counties in all, each state eventually, slowly over time, also incorporated. And you see these signs like proudly incorporated in 1942 or whatever it is, right? And you're like, oh, okay. And we have no clue what that meant.
Yeah,
that's what it meant. So the counties, the cities, the towns, they all incorporated, meaning that there's no more republic form of government pretty much at that level. It's all corporate, maritime jurisdiction.
And that all affects the courts as well, correct?
100%.
And so there you have a corporation
supposedly doing justice, and there's no such thing. They don't even follow their own rules that they have made themselves over time.
Lovely.
So for you to say, well, I'm going to march into that courtroom and I'm going to tell that judge, it's Constitution and all this. I'm like, good luck. Because they can just make stuff up. They can say, well, you threatened the judge, therefore you are now in jail. And you didn't even move out of your seat.
How do we stop all this?
They can just make whatever they want. Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right. So that was the before 2008 and what they had to fix. Okay. So now we, the people, 3, 4, 5 people in a county, pretty much are reading this thing called a covenants, like on the courthouse steps. Hear ye, right? This old 1700s stuff. And by declaration of the king, and they would read it and everyone's like, oh, okay. And then they would go and take that information home, and it would go by word of mouth or by that newspaper maybe the next day. So hear ye, we now declare this county back on the land, back in land jurisdiction, which is where we belong, we the people, and do that for 3 weeks. And then you follow your paperwork and your county is now back in the republic. At the same time, they were having kind of mini elections, sort of, and they were putting in a governor, 2 senators, House of Representatives, and state justices, Secretary of State, people like that. And so they got those people established back in each state. And they were doing this state by state by state in the Republic back in the 2009-10 timeframe, to the point where by November of 2010, now this is only 2 years later after the White Hats told them what was needed, they had a quorum of states, the 2/3 that they needed. I think it was 36 states. And they all had a meeting in Utah, kind of like a continental Congress, like what they did when they made the Constitution. And they signed something called the Declaration of Sovereign Intent, November 14th of 2010.
How many people even know that? Not very many.
Well, the people in the Republic do.
Yeah.
Know about the Republic now know this.
We got to get more people in the Republic.
Absolutely. Honorable people. And we're going to get
yes,
that here in a
definitely. Yeah.
So that was the start of it. So they had 36 or so of the 50 states. And then as the other states were, getting online, then they would sign the same document. So it would eventually go around. By April of 2012, we signed another document called Proclamation of Claim and Interest. What that means is the Republic is holding everything in America in a trust, temporary until the American people want it back. So we claimed, right, all interests, which is what this is saying. So all the land, all the water, all the air, all the animals, all the bugs, all the people, all the whatever is now back on the land in the Republic. And the corporation can talk to the hand. That's kind of what this is. Now,
awesome.
When they have that document, the proclamation and the original declaration from 2010, and we also needed to have our own flag because the corporation hijacked our original one in 1871 when everything split, that when they stole our flag. So in order for us to register, actually it was more like file our paperwork. Okay, register is too strong. File our paperwork in the international systems as required by international law. So if you remember, there's countries like, oh my gosh, Myanmar and Burma. So it used to be Burma, now it's Myanmar. Zimbabwe used to be, I just forgot their old name. When that happens, or when you change government forms or anything like that, you've got to file your new country's paperwork in the international systems. The International Court at The Hague, the United Nations, of course. I'm missing a couple. Yeah. Oh, the Universal Postal Union, right? Because you have to tell the post offices what's going on, right? And then, of course, in America, we noticed the corporate Pentagon and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and a couple other organizations. And we actually had some members of this team of White Hats, the Army of Virginia, who we presented these documents, and these generals and their staffs declared our paperwork to be 100% constitutional and by the book, by the law, and we were the authentic republic. That was in 2012.
That's awesome.
So what is our mandate? Our mandate is that we have to hold lawful republic elections within 120 days of being stood up as the authentic republic, the authentic government. Because right now we have a corporate crime syndicate pretending to be our government.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm very aware of that.
So the White Hats know that they're going to eventually have to remove them, or they will remove themselves, or however it's going to happen. But the number one rule that they have used this whole time is the option with the least amount of violence and death. So if you wonder why haven't they fill in the blank yet, right? Why haven't they released all the JFK papers yet? Why haven't they released whatever?
Epstein,
all the UFO, all the Epstein files, all the whatever. It's because it's too much of a shock to the normies. And those are the ones that have this, propensity to act irrationally.
Get aggressive. Are violent?
Aggression being one of the options we would rather them not do. And so the biggest issue right now is how slow the normies are waking up. And that's why we do these podcasts, because the people need to know what is going on, what we represent. Why you haven't heard from us is because we were shadow banned beyond shadow banning for so many years.
I get shadow banned too.
And we were infiltrated.
We're
in the middle of the third infiltration right now. So if we weren't valid and we weren't lawful and we weren't the actual republic, why would they even bother with us?
Exactly.
So the first infiltration was summer to fall of 2012. Timothy Turner, the leader of the group I told you about,
he really paid a price for what he did, and
he ended up getting appointed by the Continental Congress as the first president, and was serving in that role. He was actually meeting with some of the corporate agencies like FBI and the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he got tricked into going to a meeting and was arrested. He's laughing. He's like, for what? I haven't done anything wrong.
Doesn't matter, does it? Lawfare.
This is what I'm saying. They can make up anything
they want. And they do.
So he has his trial. So September of 22 when he's arrested. September of 12 when he's arrested. And then March of 13 was when he has his trial.
Because people have no conscience whatsoever.
No. And so he actually defends himself and proves himself innocent. It's like IRS fraud, bond fraud, and some other, white, paper crimes. And he can prove himself innocent, just about all of it. And then the judge says, no, you're still guilty. Erases all the transcripts where he had his evidence and said he didn't have any. And then convicted him to 18 years.
18 years. Oh
yeah. So this is like, you go to like the spa version of the federal prison system when you're just IRS and, paper crimes. Mm-hmm. No, they stuck him in with the international and domestic terrorist, hoping he would get killed.
Yeah, I heard they put him in all the worst prisons possible.
All the worst prisons. That's right.
Well, guess what? I think he was protected by
divine God is all over this. Absolutely. And so he survives and ends up converting a lot of these terrorists to Christianity. So God had a plan for him as well. Now he's having health issues. So, about early 2023, he starts to work through the CARES Act, which is when you have health issues in prison, you essentially are allowed to go home to die because
bless their hearts.
Right. So you get your ankle bracelet and you can't leave, and you have to special permissions to go doctors and all this stuff. So he gets released roughly May of 23. Mm-hmm. And then roughly May of 24, about a year later, just about a year ago, right after the Trump trial and verdict, if you remember, this was the same time frame.
Wow. Okay.
Somehow our message starts to get out. White hats? God? Don't know. But we're doing podcasts and all of a sudden they get out and the people are in the right mindset to hear the words and go, that's it. That's what I've been praying for. And we start getting hundreds of people joining.
That gave me goosebumps.
A couple hundred. Say again? Go ahead.
That's the implementation of the divine plan getting into action.
Absolutely. And it's palpable. You can feel this happening, that God is getting involved.
Yes.
And so after the first infiltration, when Tim was arrested, a whole bunch of other people were arrested too. And they just make stuff up. They just pick off someone in Illinois and pick off someone in Nevada. And
these attorneys, I tell you what, these bar attorneys are in law enforcement. Do you know what the euphemism is for law enforcement? Slave catcher.
That's
How
another.
appropriate. Before it used to be physical. I mean, well, physical. They're still physical to a certain extent, but now we're debt slaves.
Yep.
So that's physical because you have to work your butt off in order to pay everything. It's I'm just
So
glad
the,
that we have good people
mhm.
that are shining the light on all of this, and it's gonna change. It's gonna flip.
Yeah.
And I'm
So
very happy.
the podcasts are getting out, and we had a brand new website that we were just getting online, and we were maybe a few hundred people that were kind of holding the fort after we had millions of people in the 2012 timeframe. Everybody ran as soon as
Scared.
the arrest
Get
started.
arrested. Get
Read the Bible. How many times did that happen in history? It is what it is. And so now some of them are coming back, and that's also biblical. So now we're up to about 14,000 or more people, and
I can share the website.
It's still so. Let me get to the infiltration part. Okay, so yeah, that's our original website, and that one is mostly archival. You can find our Declaration of Sovereign Intent and the Proclamation of Claim and Interest, and the filings were in the International Court and all the rest of that stuff. It's in the tabs up above. There's so much material in here. It'll take you days to go through it. The old recordings from our Republic Radio, the old House recordings, the old Senate recordings, everything is in here. So it's pretty intense. The new website, however, which is where we would normally send you.
Oh, okay.
So the second infiltration was the 2016-17 timeframe. And again, it was, the
bad guys.
Black
hearts
decided that they didn't knock us down enough in 2012 and 13, so they're going to do it again in 16-17. And then we kind of, that shadow banning time from about 17 till 23. So everyone was just kind of doing the best that they could by just recruiting their own friends and neighbors and family to try to hold these positions. And it was a onesie twosie like me, right, in 2021. So when we get to the point in 2023, when our message starts to get out, hundreds of people start coming into our new website, which we call the members website. And then a couple of big podcasts occur in June, July, August of 24, June, July, August 24 last year. And thousands of people now start coming into the Republic. Fantastic. And it's hard to even keep up with trying to put these people into the different positions, governor, secretary of state, et cetera, because we'd already re-inhabited these states and counties before. And so all we have to do is just put people back into those seats because we did everything lawfully before. So we just have to put the people back in the seats. And so that's what we were doing. But because we were so successful, I guess is the best word, the infiltration started again. And they launched their plan in this past January. So it's only been about 4 months. And it did the almost exact same plan as they had before. Try to infiltrate the Senate. We almost had a quorum in the Senate, which was a miracle, considering how many people we had coming in. And so I do have to tip my hat to the military strategy that the infiltration is using now, which is tricking Tim Turner into thinking that the White Hats are talking to him again. And the White Hats are telling him that he needs to destroy this republic and start a new one. If you're wondering that doesn't continue either, it sounds crazy to us too. But that's what they do, and it's brilliant. I have to say, it's brilliantly evil. And so we've lost a lot of our folks. Now, many of them came in under false pretenses with this plan in mind to splinter. We call this why we splinter the group. So we call them the splinter group.
How appropriate.
Well, we're also not trying to call them anything, stay on the high road, as we say. We don't want to stoop to their level, because they like to say, Sandy lies. Jim Geiger, Tim Turner was in jail, in prison, president, and so you have to go through line of succession, right? Vice president down the line, and it was president of the Senate, Jim Geiger. So he was the next one to take that position. He's like, I don't want to do this. He says, yeah, but we need you. Ever since roughly 2012, when Tim was arrested. So Republic, who I'm talking to you about right now, we have the splinter group tactics 3 or 4 times. The latest thing is, okay, we're not trying to destroy the Republic. We are the Republic. Like, okay. And so, but, I talk to insiders, and the splinter group has no lawful standing, no jurisdiction, no authority, none whatsoever. They've been promised all this stuff. They say that they're white hats, but we know that they're not. They can't be. Has to follow their oath to the Constitution. They will never, ever break their oath to the Constitution.
I was going to ask you about how that plays in.
And so
I was going to ask you how that plays in.
How can they bypass the chain of command? How would an authentic military officer, colonel, general, whatever, bypass President Geiger, bypass the next in line, bypass the next in line, and go down to Tim Turner? We can't figure that out. Well, unless they're not authentic white hats, which is the only conclusion I can come up with, knowing with my military background. And I'm like, even if I thought Jim Geiger had done something super horrible, I still have to go talk to that guy. And I'd probably ask for his resignation. I'd say, here's the evidence of all these bad things you've done. The best thing for you to do would be to resign. It hasn't happened because there are no bad things. Because Jim Geiger has sacrificed so much to stay. He's been the president because we don't have a quorum. How can you have an election without a quorum? Now, under continuity of government, yes, you can have one. But, now it's been several years, and we just need to build back up again so that we can have an actual election. We can have an actual, like a January 6th validation of this election in the House and the Senate, joint Congress. Until we have that, we can't do it. We have to follow as best as we can the letter of the law. So Jim's stuck, and he knows it, but he's going to keep doing his best job he can, just like I am. I'm actually the National Secretary of State now. I was different positions throughout, the time, and this is where God has put me. As much as I don't want the job, I would rather
really
be retired. I would rather go fishing, and I would rather go all these other things. But
forget about all this stuff. Yeah,
that's not what God's asking me to do.
We need you.
So we take volunteers coming in. Oh, so back to the website. So the members website is where we would send everybody, because it says, sign up here, register here, whatever it says. And then that's how thousands of people were coming in. And then it would auto direct. So it would say, what state do you live in? Texas, Iowa, Illinois. And so then it would automatically forward that message to the Illinois governor, the Iowa governor, the whatever. And
of the Reinhabited Republic.
Yeah. And then the governors would handle their own internal state affairs, like it's supposed to be. Not the federal government, enslaving everyone. And the fake federal government corporate crime syndicate who's doing it now.
Exactly. Corporate crime syndicate is the best name for it. Now, how does Trump play into that? Because isn't he's actually in the corporation, whether he likes it or not. But
Right.
they obviously don't like him, so they know something about him, where his real heart lies, so that they have to constantly. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before.
I know.
Oh my God. Constantly, relentlessly.
So remember the timeline. So back in 2008, Obama is elected. The White Hat Army of Virginia folks, somehow they know this secret plan of the cabal, which is Obama, Biden, Hillary, all the three-letter agencies, all the corporations,
destroy America. Yeah.
to destroy America. So it was supposed to be 8 years of Obama and then 8 years of Hillary. And I think Hillary was supposed to have World War III with the nukes and everything. It's you can go read all about that stuff somewhere. It's pretty intense. So there's lots of theories about it, right? But Trump was recruited by the White Hats, just like we were, roughly the 2012-13 time frame, to run for president in 2016. So, of course, the cabal launches their whole fleet of smear campaigns against Trump.
Oh my God, yeah.
But he had a brilliant strategy in his campaign, and it was, why not vote for me? What have you got to lose with what you got right now? And I'm sure a lot of people went, yeah, he's right. What do we have to lose? Our cities are garbage dumps, drug-ridden, homeless, everything's run down, broken, etc. Crime.
None of the people's tax money goes into America. Exactly. It goes over to other countries. And back into the pockets of the Congress people.
Right.
Oh my God.
And we can't say, oh, those Democrats or whatever. It's a uniparty. They're all actors. Now, there might have been like a good or one or two people going in and thinking that they could do some good. And then they're sat down and they're told, so here's how it really is. The drug cartels run this country. They run it on behalf of China. China is running it on behalf of the World Economic Forum. And you are going to do as you're told, or we will start killing your family one by one. If you're good, you'll get this kickback and this bribe and this whatever in the secret account in the Cayman Islands, whatever it is that they tell them. But this happens every single time, if they don't already know. Now, Abbott, who's the supposed governor of the corporate Texas, and Polis, the supposed governor of the corporate Colorado, and Florida. DeSantis,
Katie Hobbs is
supposedly the corporate governor of state of Florida. Do you think they don't know that they're governors of corporations? They absolutely know. Not only that, but those three that I just named, all three of them are World Economic Forum graduates.
Oh my God.
So it's been a setup this whole time. So we'll just have to see, what ends up happening with all of that. Did the White Hats get to them and say, you're not following those other orders anymore. You're now following our orders. And here's why. I can only guess, and they're going to, says, you are going to do exactly what we tell you, exactly when we tell you. And I think that's what we're seeing. So anyways, where are we at? Trump. So the election fraud machine calculates how much they have to cheat in order to get Hillary in, because Trump's going to win in a landslide. And so they say, well, it's going to be, this close and whatever. So we'll cheat this much to make sure that it switches the other way. Well, they didn't have a flexible cheating mechanism. And Trump got way more votes than they were expecting. In 2016, he wins even despite all that cheating. And then Trump cheated and all that. Well, no, you did, but you didn't cheat enough.
The people spoke.
Yeah. So the people said, nope, we're going the other way. So he totally throws a wrench into that whole mechanism that they had set up for hundreds of years. This was all the slow boiling of the frog and the one little step and the one little step, so we wouldn't see it. Comes crashing down in 2016 when he wins the election. But what do they do right after that? Attack, 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 attack. And they nonstop for 4 years. How the man survived mentally, I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, I actually thought of that. Oh my God, you know.
He's got the angels and God behind him, right? Just taking care of him. So that's about the same time frame as our second infiltration, right? The 16-17 time frame. So you see how these are all lining up. And then now, January of 24. 5. What year are we in? 25.
Yeah, 25. The time is flying.
Down, right? Hold on a minute. January of 25. What happens in January 25? Oh, Trump becomes president. And here we are again with another infiltration. Wow. It just happens like clockwork. So we know that God has our back. We know that this is happening for a reason. My theory is that we had these bad people holding these positions, and because we get one chance at saving this republic, once this republic is restored, I am a temporary seat holder. President Geiger is a temporary seat holder. Our whole job is to hold those seats, to give the military, while they're doing what they need to do, the civil authority from the Constitution to, oversee what they're doing, because they will not do a military takeover. They need to have that civil authority. That has been our job from day one, what we've been told. We hold the election with a lot of help from the military because, yes, I know basics about how to hold an election, and we're going to get rid of all the machines, go all the way back to paper. We might use an Excel spreadsheet to add up the numbers from all the counties, but that's like the limit of it, okay? One-day election, you got your results in by midnight, or we're not listening to you. Your results are not good anymore if they're not in by midnight. None of this, 2 more weeks. Oh, we found another batch of votes. No.
Yeah.
You do it right the first time, and that's it.
Another batch of fraudulent.
So what happened in 2020? Massive, huge election fraud. The most election fraud, what did Biden say? We've put together the most massive election fraud system in the world.
I remember that.
Remember the exact words, but we're all going, did he mean to say that? He didn't say that. Yeah. Well, if you've ever listened to Derek Johnson's stuff, he's got it. He's got it figured out as well. And so he knows about this republic. We talk every once in a while. And everything is just lining up. I don't know how else to say it.
It's lining up in a good way, is what you're saying.
In a good way, yeah. Now, there's still some bad stuff that's happening. We still have to be on our toes and watching everything that's happening. Because even when the republic is stood up, everyone needs to be watching us like hawks. And we never stop. Ever. Or it's going to happen all again. And our great-great-great-grandchildren will have to do exactly the same thing that we're doing right now and fighting to get it back. So
that's
pretty much where we're at.
Bad people. That's what I'd like to know.
Oh, I know. Well, the evil influences, the demonic, the Satan, devil, wherever you want to go with this, right?
Yeah. Well, mind control, poisoning.
Oh my gosh, there's that.
Yeah, poisoning. The fluoride in the water makes people docile. They still haven't addressed that. That needs to get out of our water. The frequencies that the microwaving of people. It's just
100%.
And it's small wonder people don't wake up unless they are doing a lot of things to mitigate all these negative things that are being thrown at them. And there's a whole group of people that just don't have resources to do that much about it.
And there's also no such thing as global warming. There's no such thing as
What
climate
a
change.
hoax. Yeah.
The biggest hoax ever. And it's like, oh, but the scientists say, yeah, did you see who the scientists are? And who pays for their studies? When you read this study was paid for by, it's the cabal. It's the corporate crime
And
syndicate
if you
that's
don't
paying
come
these
up
guys.
with what we want you to say, you're either going to never get another grant, you're going to retract that study.
Or you're not going to be here tomorrow.
Exactly. So,
Or your family won't be here tomorrow. I mean, this is how they do business. It's all business for
so
them. It's
evil.
all about money and greed and power. And so we're trying to take that back. And that's our mandate. That's what
We
God,
will take that back.
this is God's republic.
That's
We are
right.
holding it in trust for him and the American people. And in the 2011 to 2012 timeframe, we were already helping other countries establish their own republics. Germany, Italy, Japan, I think. I'm trying to remember the countries now. That Belgium, maybe. There's several in Europe for sure. And they were already drafting their own documents that looked like ours. They're just changing them into their own language.
Fantastic.
So, of course, that all ended as soon as, the first infiltration, Tim Turner, and, all the other arrests, and everyone scattered, and then we all lost contact with each other.
Wasn't Tim contacted by Spirit?
Yes.
He came up with this divine plan, because I often wondered, well,
Yes.
what do you mean by a divine plan? Where did that come from? How did it get that name, and
Right.
so on and so forth?
So I'll quickly tell that story. So after he was approached by the White Hats, him and his colleagues, Tim's a very Christian man. And so he fasted, like real fasted, water fasted, and prayed and said, God, I need you to tell me what we should do. And he got his message. And so he started writing it down, whatever he could remember, whatever was being said. And then he wrote it up in a formal format. And then the next meeting that they had with the White Hats, it says, well, what have you come up with, Tim? And he says, well, here's what we think. And he hands them the plan. And their jaws hit the table. It's like a 22-point plan. And they go, we haven't seen a plan this good in 50 years. Where did you get it? Of course, he tells them the story, and they go, go ahead.
Upstairs. Yeah.
And here we are. So we were successful in saving the Republic, and we're still holding it in trust, like I was saying, for the American people. They just have to want it back. They have to get involved at the community level, the county level. They have to help get the counties back assembled on the land, out of the water jurisdiction. We get enough counties stood up, we can now make a state assembly. Now we can edit the state constitution in like a constitutional convention. So the state assembly is kind of doing it like a pre-convention, okay? And that's to get the state constitution set up. The over U.S., the national constitution, of course, in the Republic, the Congress, the first and second Congress of the Republic now, the 2010 to 2012 timeframe, determined that what date do you go back to in history and say, this is where our Republic starts again? Because like cancer, you're going to cut back to healthy tissue and make sure that you've got no more cancer. So December 19th of 1860. What happened then? Well, December 20th of 1860 was when South Carolina was the first state to leave the Union right before the Civil War. So the argument is the day before we had a healthy republic. That was the start of the end, was that next day. So we revert back all the way to December of 1860. Well, there's a whole bunch of missing amendments because of that.
Wow.
U.S. codes, there was no Federal Reserve, IRS, FBI, CIA, CDC, FDA, NIH.
Talk about betrayers of the people.
Housing and Urban Development, Department of Education. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so in our reinhabitation plan, these are all the things that would be removed. Just, well, what's happening in Trump's administration right now?
Yes.
He has a copy of our plan.
Oh, thank God for that. I mean, yeah, thank God, yeah.
And so we're just watching it being executed by him, and we're going, thank you, Lord. Because Sandy has no idea how to delete the FBI or the CIA. What do you want me to? I mean, I can just say, you have no more money. But see, they've got all the pedophilia, drug trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking on the side. That's actually paying for them. It's not tax money, really. It's the side stuff that they've got going on, all the crimes. So
Horrible crimes.
So how do I stop that? Me, little me, in the Republic? No, but Trump can use the whole corporate structure against the corporation.
And what better businessman to do something like that? He's
You
been
see
through it
these
himself.
executive orders flying off of his desk, right? 100 of them or whatever, 200 of them in the first day. Well, when you look at a real republic and you read the Constitution, there's nothing in there about executive orders, except for, like, we're at actual war and he has to order provisions for a new battalion or, that kind of stuff. That commander-in-chief stuff, yes.
Mhm.
But mandating a vaccine? No. You have no authority to do that. Biden didn't either. But we're pretty sure that Biden was being run by the White Hats. That might just totally go, your folks are going to go, what? When they heard
Really?
that. Holy cow, it makes
What were
more
they thinking?
It actually makes more sense because the Biden wasn't really him. I mean, you can tell, just look at a picture from the original days. And
I've seen him, yeah.
It's not the same guy.
It's not the same guy. So many people don't know
say,
that.
you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, no, I'm a pay attentionist.
Yeah, there we go. A realist.
Yeah. It's like, I see two pictures and they're not the same guy. So
we got that with a few other people as well.
So he was waking people up big time. They were using Biden to do that, this fake Biden, the actor. They had like three actors, I think, with the masks and all that.
I have to say, some of the things that they had him do, you would have thought would have woke up even more people than it did.
Like the Nazi Germany red and black background with the military behind him for one of his speeches. You can't have military back there like that. And not only that, but their uniforms weren't even in regulation.
And then his inauguration was a funeral. Not very many people picked up on that one.
No, Derek Johnson did. He does a really good thing on that one.
Yeah, he did.
So all this inconsistencies, right? And so, so then, Trump behind the scenes remained the commander-in-chief of the military, corporate military. And so he was still the corporation president because the Republic president's Jim Geiger. So,
well, he couldn't be the other president at this point in time, and I mean,
so he's the CEO of the corporate USA Incorporated. That's Trump's job right now. Biden was the same. All the presidents, all the way back to 1872, I guess. We're all corporate presidents, minimum. So executive orders don't exist in a republic like that. So that's how you know Trump is still the CEO of the corporation USA, not the republic. Like people keep saying, oh, Trump's the president of the republic. It's no, not elected by a republic people, not elected in a republic election, not certified by a republic Congress, and did not take a republic.
Yet he tells people he's giving the power back to the people.
He says he's got to wake them up slow. And, this my message to your listeners, please wake up faster. Wake up your friends and family faster, because the faster we wake up, the faster we're going to get to the trials, the Gitmos, and all the other stuff that we're waiting for, the arrests of the Faucis. They're not going to do it until they know that we're not going to react in a bunch of violence and death. And the only way that's going to happen is if we wake the hell up.
Wake your arses up.
And the way that they're monitoring it in the White Hat world is social media.
Oh, really?
And so if you type, oh, I just saw this great podcast, and you share it and you say, this is awesome, and here's what they're talking about, and share it. You say, this is the truth, and all, and you share it. They've got massive AI. Of course, they're not going to tell us about this. Massive AI running the whole algorithm thing. And then they'll drop some random thing through one of their, little mouthpiece podcasters. And it'll be total fabrication. That's probably close to the truth, but only one of them will drop it. And then they'll see what kind of reaction it gets. And then that's how they're kind of like testing it, kind of like, sticking your finger in or putting a thermometer into the turkey to see if it's done. That's what they're doing with this stuff.
Why are they so afraid of
the violence and death?
Reaction?
Because once it starts, it doesn't stop. We cannot survive another civil war. That's the whole thing, is to minimize the violence and death.
Well, they talk about a scare event. Is that true?
Well, who is talking about that? The good guys or the bad guys?
Well, I thought it would be the good guys in order to wake more people up. Whether or not it's just going to look a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's actually happening, because...
Well, something that one of my insiders told me is that if we get to an EBS, emergency broadcast system message, it's a higher probability, much higher probability it's coming from the bad guys than from the good guys.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Especially if it happens like sooner rather than later. Yes, there's probably going to be an EBS eventually, but it's going to be after a whole bunch of things have already happened, and the EBS is like nothing. It's like a formality. Oh, yeah, they already told us about that over the last couple of months that this was coming, so it's no big deal. That's what I think is going to happen. Again, because they're going to minimize that violence and death option as much as they can and try to keep us from starting something. Because, how many armed Americans are there now? Well, let's see, 335 million, about 75 million are kids. So we're at 260 million-ish adults. A lot of those are older people. Some are in their, 18 to 20. So maybe they're not willing to fight. So maybe 200 million.
Mm-hmm.
There's only, 1.5 million military? I'm just saying, do the math. So they don't want any violence and death. And the cabal, evil corporate crime syndicate, is going to try to get us to have violence and death as much as they can. Notice how that we haven't heard a whole lot from Antifa or BLM lately. What happened with that?
Good question.
Well, their funding dried up, number one. So,
and we can keep that happening. That helps a lot. You take
sure
away
does.
their money, and that's a whole nother story. Now, there's a couple of things. I mean, I think maybe towards the end, I want to go through like a call to action and what people can do, because people are kind of at a loss as to what can I do. I'm just because they've already been trained to think they're little and small and nothing.
Right.
And so we'll talk about that. But I was just I forgot what I was going to say now. It'll come back to me in a minute here.
Mm-hmm. Call to action.
Yes.
Yep. So the Splinter Group took down our website. I am not just saying that as a, because I'm, throwing around wild accusations like they do. I have actual physical evidence of somebody from the Splinter Group saying that the Splinter Group took down the website. So when we get to the military tribunals part of this whole story, that will come up, because it's an actual international crime to do that.
Now, do they have to have the EBS in order to have that, to show the military tribunals?
No, they've already been having the military tribunals.
But the public isn't aware of that.
That's correct.
How? When do they plan on letting the public be aware of it?
I don't know, but here's a fact I can give you.
Okay.
And I know this for 100% truth. A very, very good friend of mine, who's former Navy, has a son in the Navy stationed at Gitmo. And he can't talk to his dad about anything because they have all signed NDAs at Gitmo. There's no such thing as signing NDAs in the military. What in the world?
All this secrecy is what started all the problems in the first place.
But
where's the transparency?
But if that secrecy is the option with the least amount of violence and death, so eventually they will show the videos, all the proof, whatever it is that we need.
Well, that certainly will wake people up.
Slowly over time to bring us all up, together. So
what's this about a certain percentage of people have to be awake, and how do they measure something like that?
So that's a great question. I don't know how they're actually doing it, but every once in a while you hear about these polls, the whatever. I don't know who does the polls these days.
I have no idea.
Anyways, an honest poll.
Yeah.
And but remember how I said there's AI that's watching all of the social media, etc.
Is this good AI or is this negative AI?
Good AI.
We have good AI, okay, because the other AI is shadow banned.
Well, but there's like the evil AI that's massive, and then there's the good AI that's massive, and it's like, is it eventually going to be a fight between the two AIs?
I've always wondered that. I actually wondered that.
Who knows? But this thing that they're talking about now, how AI is developing, and look how cute this is, and all. It's like they've been using it for like 20, 30 years, almost certainly. And they're just now slowly leaking out that there's something like this, in existence. That's me. I don't know.
Well, why couldn't they reveal some of the technology? I mean, what's the harm in that?
I think it's coming. It's hard to even imagine. What are we, 4 months? 4 months into this presidency out of the 4 years that he has? And is he going to be here for another 4? Probably. Because remember, like I said, yes, there was an amendment that said that the president can only hold 2 terms. But did he ever leave the first term? So technically he was still in the second term with Biden. So he's already in his 3rd term now. How you want to count it? I mean, literally. And then if it's a corporation, there's no rules. So
exactly. And that's what it is, isn't it?
And if this republic reverts to 1860, there is no rule about only 2 terms for the president. So there's
as long as the people are happy.
Exactly. Well, not upset. That's probably the better way to say it. As long as the people are not upset, we're okay. But normies, please wake up. Please.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that would help. If the poisoning would stop, that would help. If the food would change, that would help. If they could stop some of the chemtrails, that would help. Get the fluoride out of water, that would help. There's RFJK has a lot of work to do. And he has to be backed up by the rest of the administration to be able to get things like that done. Because he'll get targeted too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and the Kennedys have been targeted so much, but
that's because they're good guys, most of them, not all of them.
Well, remember that the Kennedy family started off bad. Joe Kennedy, I think, the father of JFK and RFK. No. Yeah, they were brothers.
Yeah.
So Joe is like, I don't know, Mason, bar attorney, he's, Illuminati, whatever you want to call it. Now, whether his sons were as well, and then they just, misbehaved because they weren't following their order. We got to have these documents, right? So we would know these answers. But
receipts.
The receipts, exactly. We just don't know. I could hypothesize with you all day long and say, well, this one little piece of data kind of makes me think this, and this other little piece of data kind of makes me think this. We don't know But I heard you wanted a basic introduction to the ideas and what we represent, and the fact that you're going to hear a lot of podcasters say, we have to save our republic. And I always say, we already did. All we need you to do is to sign up. So, and now you know.
So that's a call to action right there. Anybody that's listening,
Mm-hmm.
if this resonates with you, you need to sign up, speak up.
Yeah. So
talk
while
to your
our
family
website,
and friends and increase awareness. That's what the problem is. Lack of awareness.
Share this video, share all the other videos that we have out there. There's zillions of them. When our website is finally back up again, of course, go there and sign up. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a way for you to reach out to the current interim governor in the Republic directly. And that's through we call it the state emails. And so the suffix is the same for all the states. So, like at yahoo.com, like for a normal one. For us, it's at, and this is really long, I'm so sorry, at Republic for the United States of America.org. At Republic for the United States of America.org. All of them end in that. The front part now, the suffix part or the prefix part, is the state. If it's one word like Texas, Illinois, it's just Texas at, and then that long thing. If it's two words like North Dakota, it's North _ like underline Dakota at, and then the rest of it. So that's
what is Arkansas?
Wherever you live, Arkansas at Republic for the United States of America.org.
Okay.
You'll go direct to the governors. That's the easiest way to do it. I would normally send you to our members website. It's almost ready. We're almost back up again. We've been down since March, middle of March, end of March, April, May, 2 months. Ugh. So yeah, we'll get there. We're really close right now. We're just doing like the last bits. So that's what we would normally send you. And the governor will direct you to that website when the website is up. But in the meantime, you're just going to bypass that website and go straight to the governor, because that's what would happen if you were to go to the website, is you would be directed to the governor. We're just having you go direct to the governors at this point. And have a conversation. How can I help you, governor? And they're going to say, where do you live? And you're going to say, Adams County. And they're going to say, awesome, I don't have anyone in Adams County. Here are the positions that you could possibly hold. Do any of those ring true with you? And off to the races you go. That's it. And then you might go, well, that sounds like a lot more than I'm able to take on. I'm a single mom working 3 jobs. I got 2 sick kids.
That's a big problem right there.
Okay.
Thanks to corporate America.
That's okay. But can you help? Absolutely. Can you get involved in the assembly? Maybe not in a leadership position, but can you help the assembly? Absolutely. So there's a job for everybody. There's a job for every, amount of time that you have to give to it. Somebody that listening to this is probably going, I have been praying and praying so hard for this. I'm retired. My kids have left the house and I kind of have all this time on my hands and I want to help in some way. Bam. State senator, state justice. And the governor will talk to you about this. Remember, we have a lot of positions that are already filled. Some aren't. And so that's where you talk to the governor and you find out what's available. And so that's the best way to get involved. And you might change your mind. You might say, well, I don't want to get involved. And then, no, I really do want to get involved now. And you talk to the governor. And then, so I would recommend that you reach out to them and at least have a conversation, learn more about it. And we've got a lot of other resources. So something that if you are maybe not sure you want to get involved with the Republic, but you want to do something, go take a Constitution class. There's a couple of good ones online. Hillsdale College in Michigan has a Constitution 101, a Constitution 201, Declaration of Independence. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. And of course, the Reinhabited books.
People will probably be amazed at how much it's been compromised. Reinhabited. Okay.
So these are the Hurtler's books. This one happens to be volume 2. So this is the one that's the story I just told you in a lot of detail.
Wow.
So this is the one that tells you what just happened with this republic. How did we get it back? And then this other one is, how did we originally get one? How did we lose it? And so that's the true American history, the stuff that you're not going to read in a normal history book because they're all cabal.
Exactly. All the books
So,
are, yeah.
but this is how you can do a deep dive. And we do have other forms available. They're just not yet on our website.
Are there other speakers or presenters or like I'm willing to, as a podcaster, to try to put education out there as much as possible. I'm not as big as some of these other people, but they don't even touch it anyway.
It's all right. Generally, the very first job that I had when I was still teaching at the Air Force Academy, I took the Hatch Act very seriously and would not take on any position in the Republic that was appointed or elected. And so I was outreach coordinator. So I was doing videos and podcasts just like this since the beginning. And so then that slowly morphed over time, but then I still have this same job. So you're going to see mostly me online speaking of these things.
Well, you're educating people. That's what's necessary.
Right. And that's because of my teacher background. So you're going to see videos out there claiming to be the Republic that you will recognize immediately that it's the splinter group. And so just be cautious that there's a lot of that stuff out there. And make sure you've got the authentic Republic, the original one, the one I represent.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to be able to recognize the difference and to utilize the books that you speak of.
So there's 3 actions, right?
Yeah.
So talk to your governor in the Republic. If you want to do the deep dive, get the books, especially volume 2, because it's going to tell you what I just told you, but in a lot more detail. And what was the other one? I just forgot.
Tell your friends and neighbors and
there you
family.
go. Tell your friends and neighbors. That's right. We also have a like a contact us thing on the website in case all of that just went over your head. You can reach out that way as well. It'll take longer because we have to go through all of those emails individually. Whereas the governors, if they go direct to the governors, it's way faster. Friends and family for sure. The people that you would trust your life to. Those are the ones that we really, really need. We had all these people come in because of the podcasts. There are a lot of them are infiltrators.
Oh,
so
no.
How do we not do that again?
So people need to learn their lawful rights under the original Republic because they don't realize how many rights that they lost.
I remembered the other one, Constitution courses. And
yeah.
Yeah. A question just popped up. What's the deal with SG Anon?
Yeah. I don't get that question.
I'm going to try to stay on the high road with this one. It's hard too. So SG and I did a podcast somewhere around July 10th of last year. And it went absolutely viral.
Mm-hmm.
And thousands of people signed up.
I saw part of it, yeah.
It was huge. And I think still to this day, it was one of the best ones we've had. Then the splinter group got to him. And they said, that this is true and this is true. And this, it's like with no evidence, but he believed them. And so SG says that he's done all of his research. And yet I could prove one thing wrong right away, which is he says George Washington never signed something called 1 Statute 50 in his intense research. I'm like, I just went to the congressional record and it says right there, George Washington signed 1 Statute 50 and it's right there. It's like, so much for your research. So
wow.
He has left the Republic. He has fully joined the splinter group. even though he says he hasn't, and he's remaining neutral and all that. It's like, no, he's continuing to double down and triple down on
Oh my God, I'm very
spreading this
disappointed.
stuff. So it's like, and it's the words coming straight out of the splinter group's mouth, coming out of his mouth. So it is what it is. We don't tell people what to do or think. That's freedom. That's the First Amendment, to say and think whatever you feel you should say and think. Obviously, without harming people, because you don't want to deny anyone else their rights. But there's never been any evidence that he's presented. We've always asked him for, okay, if you think that there was financial something bad, show us the evidence so we can address it, because that's called due process of the law. You make an accusation based on evidence, you present the evidence, and you let the person who's accused to address it. That just gets bypassed. So for them to claim that they're in the Republic is really funny, because there's no justice, there's no chance to refute or rebut anything that he said. Now, we did a rebuttal to a video that he did where he said all this stuff, historical and all that. And
SG did?
Yeah. And so we did a rebuttal where we addressed all the big points that he had made. I'm not going to go in and say, and George Washington did this and Jefferson did that. And, it's like, we just addressed it in general. And so, we presented evidence that he's wrong. And
you had the receipts and he didn't.
It doesn't go anywhere. So
my cat once again.
That's basically, in summary, what's going on with that. So
wow, I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
maybe that's why I couldn't find his contact, because I was thinking about having a show with him, but now I don't think I will.
Most of the folks in the Republic have stopped following him, like just remove themselves from his Rumble channel and whatever, because this is a discernment test. It's the only way I can see it. God is testing all of us here in the Republic, that we can discern truth from non-truth. And so the ones that are hearing what the splinter group is saying and they're going, that doesn't sound right, and they're staying, those are the ones we want to stay, because they have discernment. It's the ones that are hearing this stuff and are going, yeah, that doesn't sound right, and off they go. It's like, go ahead, because God didn't want you here. Gideon's army, right? 32,000 down to 300. He only wanted a certain few. And so this is some sort of it has to be some sort of test that God is doing right now. And so how much do we want to interfere or stop the infiltration and the splintering? And all we do is present facts. And we say, you decide what sounds truth to you. Here's the evidence. Here's, all the paperwork. Here's the actual law. We can show you pictures of the pages, from the congressional record. You read it. And, this is what we think it says. Then you decide what to do about it. That's it. So.
Wow. That's
heavy.
Heavy. Yeah, it is. I'm kind of shocked by that. I wasn't aware what was going on in that regard. Wow. Let me see if I have anything else. I'm surprised we don't have any other questions out there, but there was a lot to unpack, so to speak.
Yeah, it's probably a fire hose of information. There's a lot of stuff to digest, a lot of stuff to look up. Don't just take my word for this. Those books that I just told you about, there is an option to get to an audio book when the members website is finally back up. The governors can tell you how to get there. That is an optional donation, so no problem with you not having to pay any money for it. You can just listen to the audio book. Now, having the actual book is great because there's the picture of the document.
Yeah, I like hard copy, but I do like audio too.
And all the footnotes are there. Footnote number 371, footnote number 1,212.
Yeah, where does that come from? Yeah,
huge, right? So it tells you exactly where you can go and look. So,
that requires an ability to know how to research to some extent too, and maybe that's part of our problem at times. A lot of people don't know where to look, because you can go to Google and it might be on the 15th page before you find what you want, which most people wouldn't go that far. You know what I mean?
No.
And that's very intentional. So,
Yeah.
Well, in closing, I have a prayer that I'd like to bring up. Let me bring that up. I'll show it to you, and I'll just read through it. And you can read along if you want. And I hope that everybody will share this video so more and more people become aware of what's happening. And so let me just read it. It said, "Beloved Source, Infinite Creator, and Guides for the Light Web, we thank you for the courage to remember. We thank you for the truth tellers, the oath keepers, and the hearts awakening right now across this earth. May this broadcast be a beacon to the souls who are ready. May those who feel alone know they are surrounded in love. May we walk forward in peace, in power, in purpose. And may the Reinhabited Republic rise again, guided not only by law, but by love." And so it is.
Amen.
So, in conclusion, do you have anything you want to say or add? And I'd love to have you back again, because there's so much for people to learn. Maybe we can work something out.
Definitely a lot to unpack. That was just kind of hitting the highlights of a lot of things. And of course, as the Republic re-inhabits again.
Yes.
And continues on from where we're at. So
we want to get it right this time and have it happen. We want it to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
And I hope we get Trump on board too. So it seems like he is in a lot of ways by what he's doing.
Like I said, he was recruited by the same white hats that we were. And
there you go. Yeah.
We are part of the same plan.
Oh, good. I was hoping to hear you say that. I thought so, but and besides, if you think about, when has anyone ever been attacked so relentlessly? I mean, you got to sit back and go, what the heck? What's the matter with these people? Why are they so against him?
Yeah.
And, that's the same thing they did with people like Christ and so on. So that tells you a lot right there.
All the heroes in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on my podcast and sharing that wonderful information. And,
well, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
I'm happy to come back whenever you like.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'll be in touch. We'll figure out something else that's important that needs to go out there. So thank you so much, Sandy. And thank you, listeners, and please take heed and do share this. Let this become a beacon so more people can learn what's going on and how important this kind of information is. Because if we don't get our freedom back, I hate to think about what's forthcoming if we don't. So without going to that dark area, let's stay in the light, shine your light, stay free and stay resonant. And I'll see you again soon. And thank you again, Sandy.
We have found our way. It's a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are. And like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our colors. We are heroes and dreamers. We control our fate. Destiny awaits. We are all the actors in the stories we create. Hope will be our guide. We'll no longer hide. When we roll like thunder, feel the wonder from inside. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show